For 4 long years he waited. Through searing summers, bone-chilling winters, and storms that turned the skies dark and angry, he remained in one place. A German shepherd with fading fur and soulful eyes, always in the same spot, staring down the stretch of road that led to nowhere. The locals called him Duke, though no one knew where he came from, or who he belonged to. He didn't chase cars. He didn't bark at strangers. He didn't wander far. He just waited. Like a ghost anchored by memory, refusing to move on. At first, people thought he was a stray. They tried to approach him with food, with kindness, with leashes. But Duke never let anyone close. If they reached out, he would quietly stand, walk a few paces away, and sit again, facing the road. Always the road. He wasn't mean. He wasn't scared. He was patient. As if his soul had made a quiet vow to wait, no matter how long it took. The gas station he claimed as his post had long been abandoned. Rust crept along its walls, weeds broke through the concrete, and the old fuel pumps stood like relics of a forgotten time. Yet every morning, without fail, Duke would be there, settled beside the station, his eyes never straying far from the horizon. Martha Reynolds, the owner of a small diner down the road, was one of the first to notice him. She was 56, short, with a kind face framed by silver-gray hair and a voice that carried both gentleness and grit. Every morning before opening up, she'd stop by the gas station, leaving a paper plate with scraps near the pumps. "Poor thing," she'd say to anyone who asked. "He's waiting for someone. I don't know who, but I hope they come back someday." No one had the heart to force him to leave. He became a quiet legend in the small town, the dog who never moved on. He endured harsh winters curled against the crumbling wall, wind biting at his back, snow piling at his paws. During brutal summers, he lay under the shade of the overhang, tongue hanging out, panting slowly as the sun beat down. And when thunderstorms rolled through, the loud ones that rattle windows, locals swore they could hear him whimper, a soft, heartbreaking sound that melted even the hardest hearts. People tried to adopt him. A trucker once pulled over and opened his door, offering a ride. A young woman came with a leash, thinking maybe she could rescue him. But every time, Duke pulled away. Not violently. Just silently refusing. He'd sit back down where he always did. As if to say, "I'm not lost. I'm waiting." And that's how it stayed. For years. Then, one cold morning in early autumn, something changed. A new face came through town, a man named Noah Patterson. 32. A journalist. Lean, sharp-eyed, always in motion. He had passed through the town many times on his way to other stories, other towns. But on this day, something made him slow down. Maybe it was the way the light caught the outline of the dog. Or the absolute stillness in Duke's frame. Whatever it was, Noah pulled over. Sat in his car for a moment, watching the German shepherd sit in front of the gas station, motionless. The dog didn't even glance at him. Noah raised his phone, snapped a picture, and felt a strange pull in his chest. He had covered stories all over the country, missing people, disasters, reunions, miracles. But this wasn't just a story. It was something else. Something quiet, but powerful. He parked his car properly and walked into Martha's diner. The smell of fresh coffee and bacon hit him the moment he stepped inside. A few regulars sat at the counter, chatting about the coming storm. Martha looked up and smiled. "Coffee? Absolutely," Noah said, taking a seat. "Can I ask you something?" She raised an eyebrow as she poured him a cup. "Let me guess. The dog." He chuckled. "So it's not just me." She leaned against the counter, towel in hand. "That dog's been sitting there for 4 years now. You're a little late to the mystery." Noah frowned. "For years? Waiting for what?" "That's the thing," she said softly. "No one really knows. Some folks say he belonged to a trucker. Others think he got separated from his owners in a storm. But me?" She looked out the window. Duke was still there. Still unmoving. I think he's waiting for his family. Noah's journalist's brain switched on. There was a story here. Not just a mystery, a soul-deep story of loyalty, hope, and grief. He pulled out his laptop later that night and began to dig. Old missing dog reports. Social media posts. Anything that might tell him where Duke had come from. Hours passed. Then he found it. A report from 4 years ago. Filed by a couple, Benjamin and Emily Carter. Their dog, a German shepherd named Duke, had vanished after a car accident on Highway 214. Noah's heart stopped. Highway 214 was less than a mile from where Duke had been waiting for 4 years. This wasn't just a stray. This was a dog who had never stopped waiting. For the first time in a long time, Noah felt the rush of uncovering something real. A true story. A miracle waiting to happen. He glanced outside. Duke still sat there. Quiet. Unmoving. Waiting. But not for long. He picked up his camera and began to record. The camera focused gently on Duke's solemn figure, framed by the faded paint of the gas station and the endless stretch of highway beyond. The golden hues of sunset bathed everything in a calm glow. Noah hit record, his voice soft but steady. "This is Duke," he said. "And for 4 years he has waited in this exact spot. Day after day. Season after season. Waiting for someone who never came back." The lens zoomed slowly into Duke's face, capturing the tired, loyal eyes that had never stopped scanning the horizon. No one knows how he survived, how he weathered winters colder than any creature should endure, or summers that turned the pavement to fire. But what we do know is this: Duke didn't wander. He didn't run. He stayed. Right here. Because he was waiting for his family. Noah ended the recording and sat back in his car. He uploaded the video to Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, every platform he had access to, with one simple caption: "The dog who never left. 4 years. One spot. One hope. Can we help Duke find his family?" He didn't expect what happened next. Within an hour, the video had exploded. 10,000 views. Then 50. 100. People from all over the country flooded the comments, hearts breaking at the sight of the loyal shepherd. "This made me cry at work. How can anyone leave a dog like this behind? Dogs are too good for us. Please find his family. Please." Then a comment. Simple. But it changed everything. "I think I know this dog." Across the country, in the quiet suburbs of Denver, Colorado, a 14-year-old boy sat on the couch scrolling through his phone. Lucas Carter, brown hair, hazel eyes, a little taller than most his age, froze mid-scroll. Someone had sent him the video. He tapped it. The moment the dog's face filled the screen, everything inside him shifted. He stopped breathing. "Duke?" he whispered. His mother, Emily Carter, walked into the room with a laundry basket in her arms. Lucas turned to her, eyes wide, voice shaking. "Mom!" She paused. "What is it?" He held out the phone with trembling hands. Emily's eyes narrowed at the screen, then widened in shock. The man in the video was speaking. His family thought they lost him forever. But he never stopped waiting. Her hand covered her mouth. "Oh my God!" Within minutes, Noah's inbox exploded again. Thousands of messages from people offering help, rescue groups wanting to assist, news outlets requesting interviews. But one message cut through the noise like a lightning bolt. "That's our dog. That's Duke. We thought he was gone forever. Please, please tell me he's still there." Noah sat in stunned silence, reading and rereading the message. "From Emily Carter." He replied instantly. "Emily, I just saw your message. Duke is still here. He's right outside the gas station. Same spot. He's never left." A reply came seconds later. "Where are you? We need to come." Noah sent the location and his number. His phone rang almost immediately. "Hello?" he answered. The voice on the other end was shaky, tearful. "Is this real?" Yes, ma'am, Noah said softly. I'm looking at him right now. He's still here. A choked sob. We're coming. Oh my God, we're coming. How far are you? We're in Denver. It's a long drive, but we're leaving right now. That's over 10 hours, Noah said. I'll be here. Duke isn't going anywhere. Emily's voice broke. Please, tell him we're coming. Noah looked out the windshield at Duke, still sitting by the road, still waiting. I think, he said quietly, he already knows. The hours that followed felt like something sacred. Noah didn't leave Duke's side. He sat near him, wrapped in a coat as the evening chill settled in. Every time a car passed, Duke's ears would twitch, his eyes following the headlights, hopeful, even after all this time. News spread around town. Slowly people came. Martha arrived first. Her hands trembled as she laid a blanket near Duke. I knew he was waiting for someone, she whispered. I just didn't know who. Others followed. Truckers who'd passed by for years, offering food that was rarely accepted. A teenage girl who had once sat across the street crying for hours, trying to convince Duke to come with her. Now they understood why he never did. Because his heart already belonged to someone. Night fell. Noah sat quietly, his breath misting in the cold air, glancing at the time every few minutes. 4 more hours. Then 3. Duke didn't move. But something had changed. There was something in his posture. A flicker in his eyes. Like he knew. Noah whispered. Just a little longer, buddy. They're coming. Duke's ears twitched. But he didn't look away from the road. It was just before dawn when the headlights appeared in the distance. Noah stood slowly, his pulse racing. The car slowed, then turned onto the gravel lot beside the gas station. The engine cut off. A door flew open. Emily Carter stepped out first, tears already spilling down her face as she scanned the lot with frantic eyes. Benjamin followed. Tall. Silent. His jaw clenched. And then, from the back seat, Lucas stepped out. 4 years older. But those eyes still full of the same hope. They didn't speak. They didn't need to. Duke had risen to his feet. His body was still. His ears were up. His gaze locked on the 3 figures. Time held its breath. Emily whispered, Duke! He didn't move. Then Lucas stepped forward, voice cracking. It's me, buddy. Duke's tail gave a faint twitch. Another step. Then another. Then, he ran. Emily sobbed. Lucas crouched down. And Duke barreled into him like no time had passed. Lucas wrapped his arms around him, crying into his fur. You waited. You waited for us. Benjamin knelt beside them, hand resting on Duke's back. Good boy, good boy. Emily joined, embracing them both. Duke let out a long, low sound, not a bark. Not a whimper. Something deeper. Relief. After 4 long years, he was home. The sun was barely up when they finally pulled away from the gas station. Duke lay in the back seat, his head resting gently on Lucas's lap, just like he used to do. Lucas didn't speak much, he just kept his hand on Duke's back, stroking slowly, as if to reassure both of them that this wasn't a dream. Every so often, he'd whisper, I missed you, buddy. Or, we're taking you home now. And though Duke didn't react much, no licking, no wagging, he didn't move away there. And that was enough. Emily glanced into the rearview mirror every few minutes. Her grip on the steering wheel was too tight, knuckles white, breath caught between joy and disbelief. She had imagined this moment so many times, pulling away from that gas station with Duke in the car. But now that it was real, it didn't feel the way she thought it would. It felt heavier. Like she had brought someone back from a war. Because Duke wasn't the same. The dog they had lost had been full of energy, always underfoot, playful and protective. But the dog they brought home was quieter, more reserved. His eyes still carried that faraway look. He seemed to expect something to go wrong. And that scared her. Their new home wasn't the one Duke remembered. After the accident, the Carters had moved away from Wyoming, trying to start fresh in Denver. Their old home had become too painful. The place where every corner reminded them of Duke's absence. The new house was bigger, with a spacious backyard and plenty of sunlight. It was comfortable, safe. But to Duke, it was foreign ground. When they finally pulled into the driveway, Lucas gently nudged Duke. "We're home, boy," he whispered. Duke lifted his head slowly, his ears alert, his body stiff. His eyes scanned the yard, the house, the unfamiliar windows. It didn't look like anything he remembered. It didn't smell like home. It wasn't his. Lucas stepped out and waited, holding the door open. Duke hesitated. Emily's heart clenched. She exchanged a glance with Benjamin, who stepped forward, crouching by the open door. "It's okay, boy," Benjamin said, his voice low, steady. "Come on. You're safe now." Still, Duke didn't move. Lucas crouched beside his father. "We're here. We're not leaving you. I promise." A few seconds passed. Then Duke slowly stepped out. One paw, then another. He moved cautiously, his muscles tight, his head low, scanning every sound and shadow like a soldier returning from the battlefield. The wind rustled the trees, and he turned sharply. A car drove by, and his tail dropped lower. He didn't know what to trust yet. Inside, Lucas led Duke to the corner of the living room where they placed his old dog bed, the same one he used to curl up in as a pup. Lucas patted it gently. "It's yours, buddy. Just like before." Duke sniffed it. Turned in a slow circle. But he didn't lie down. Instead, he paced. Tail low. Shoulders tense. Emily sat nearby on the couch, her heart aching. She knelt down and reached out a hand, careful, slow. "You're home now," she whispered. Duke flinched. Lucas noticed it instantly, the way his body stiffened, the sudden glance toward the door like he was already planning his exit. He wanted to believe he was home, but he didn't feel it. Not yet. That first night was the hardest. Duke refused to sleep inside. No matter what they did, blankets, gentle coaxing, treats, an open door, he wouldn't settle. He paced. Circled. Sat by the back door for hours, staring out at the night. Lucas lay on the floor beside him for most of the evening, whispering stories, memories, anything to fill the silence. But Duke stayed in his own space, eyes fixed outward, as if still waiting. Waiting for something that didn't exist anymore. For a family he thought had left him behind. For a place that no longer existed. Lucas wanted to reach out, to pull him into a hug and promise it would all be okay. But how do you heal a heart that had learned to survive alone? So he didn't push. He waited. Like Duke had waited for him. The days that followed were slow. Hard. Full of small setbacks and careful victories. Duke wouldn't eat if someone was in the room. He wouldn't let the door close behind him. He flinched at loud noises. He followed shadows like they might be threats. At night, he refused to sleep anywhere but in front of the back door. Lucas stayed close. Never forcing, just offering presence. Then, one cold morning, a week after they brought Duke home, something changed. Lucas woke up early, rubbing sleep from his eyes. He shuffled downstairs and paused at the bottom step. Duke wasn't by the door. His heart jumped. Then he turned the corner and stopped cold. Duke was curled up in his dog bed. Eyes closed. Breathing steady. Sleeping. Lucas didn't move. He didn't speak. He just watched. For the first time since the accident, for the first time in 4 years, Duke was resting like he was home. Lucas quietly pulled out his phone and texted his mom. "He's sleeping on his bed." Seconds later, Emily replied, "Don't wake him. Let him feel safe." Lucas set the phone down and sat on the floor a few feet away, just watching him. His eyes burned, but he smiled. That night, Lucas curled up on the couch flipping through an old photo album. Pictures of Duke as a puppy filled the pages, small, flop-eared, always glued to Lucas's side. Then he felt movement beside him. He turned his head, and his heart nearly stopped. Duke was standing next to him, staring at him. Lucas froze. Then, slowly, cautiously, Duke placed his head on Lucas's lap. Lucas didn't speak. He just reached out and gently ran his hand along Duke's back. "You remember me?" he whispered. Duke let out a quiet breath, and then, for the first time since he'd come home, he wagged his tail. From that moment on, something began to shift. Duke started to eat while people were in the room, slowly at first, still glancing up between bites, ready to retreat if anything felt off. He began to sleep longer, deeper. His body no longer flinched at every sound. He followed Lucas from room to room, not like a shadow, but like a companion learning the rhythm of a new life. He even began to wag his tail more often, small wags at first, cautious, almost like he wasn't sure he was allowed to be happy. But the more time he spent with Lucas, the more those tail wags became full, sweeping, joyful. He still had moments, though. Every time someone opened the back door, Duke's body would tense. His ears would go up, and his muscles would lock like he was about to make a decision. Run or stay. Flee or trust. There was always a pause, a silent war behind his eyes, as if he wasn't sure yet that this was permanent. Lucas noticed every time. His parents told him it would take time. That after 4 years alone, Duke's instincts were wired for survival. And Lucas understood that. But deep down, he also worried. What if Duke got a chance to run? Would he leave? Would he go back to that same spot, thinking his family had changed their minds again? Lucas wasn't afraid of the waiting. He was afraid of the leaving. And then came the test. It was a crisp afternoon, one of those peaceful, golden days when the sky feels impossibly wide and the air carries the smell of dry leaves and approaching winter. Lucas had just gotten home from school and dropped his backpack by the door. Duke met him like always, tail thumping gently against the floor. Lucas knelt to greet him, scratching behind his ears. "You want to go outside, buddy?" Duke tilted his head. Lucas smiled. "Come on. Let's try it." Up until that day, they had only taken Duke out on a leash, carefully, cautiously. They weren't sure if he'd bolt at a sudden noise or if he'd try to escape through the fence. But Lucas wanted to see if Duke could finally trust that this was his home. That he didn't need to run anymore. He walked to the back door and opened it. Duke stood still for a moment, sniffing the air. Lucas stepped outside and looked back. "Go on. You're okay." Duke stepped out slowly, his paws touching the grass with tentative grace. He took a few cautious steps, scanning the yard, his body still alert. Then, a sound shattered everything. A firework. A sharp, sudden explosion One somewhere in the neighborhood. Duke froze. Every part of his body locked up. His ears pinned back. His tail dropped. Another firework burst in the distance, loud, violent. Before Lucas could react, Duke was gone. He bolted across the yard, fast as lightning, heading straight for the open gate. Lucas's heart dropped. "No, Duke!" he yelled, sprinting after him, panic clenching in his chest. "Duke!" But Duke was already through the gate. Lucas ran harder, legs burning, lungs aching, but he was losing ground. The dog was faster, powered by panic and memory. Duke skidded to a stop at the edge of the sidewalk. And for one terrifying, breathless second, he just stood there. Lucas reached the gate, gasping. "Please," he whispered. "Please don't go." Duke turned. Their eyes met. Lucas saw the battle happening in Duke's mind, 4 years of waiting, of heartbreak, of standing still hoping someone would come back. That instinct to search again. That desperate belief that something had been missed. Then, Duke made his choice. He turned away from the road. And ran back to Lucas. Lucas dropped to his knees, tears rising fast as Duke barreled into him. The dog pressed his head into Lucas's chest, breathing hard, trembling. Lucas wrapped his arms around him, voice shaking. You came back. You didn't run. Duke's tail moved. A soft wag. Just enough to say, I know where I belong. From that day forward, things were different. Not perfect. Not all at once. But something deep inside Duke had shifted again. For the first time since he had come home, he seemed to believe it. He let himself be at ease. He spent more time outside without fear, running, stretching, playing. Emily still worried every time she saw the back door open. She'd peek through the curtains, heart in her throat, watching as Duke sniffed the wind or lay in the grass. But he never bolted. Instead, he'd glance over his shoulder, find Lucas, and trot back inside when called. That moment, the day he came back on his own, became a turning point. A line drawn between past and present. And each day after, Duke walked a little lighter. Lucas started to smile more. The house felt fuller. The echoes of grief and guilt softened into memories. They began to build a new life, together. One golden afternoon, Lucas stood at the edge of the yard watching Duke sprint through the grass, his body relaxed, his tail high. He looked so free, like the weight of waiting had finally lifted off his back. Hey, Duke! Lucas called. The dog stopped mid-run, turned, and saw him. And without hesitation, Duke bolted back toward him, tongue out, joy in his eyes. He jumped up, placing his front paws on Lucas's chest. Lucas laughed, wrapping his arms around him. You're a good boy, he whispered through laughter, voice tight with emotion. Duke barked, once, a deep, full, joyful sound. And then he ran in a circle, daring Lucas to chase him. A new game. A new life. Inside the house, Emily and Benjamin stood by the window, watching their son and their dog. Watching the love that had never died, only waited. He remembers us, Emily whispered. Benjamin nodded. He never forgot. In the weeks that followed, Duke became a different dog. The change wasn't loud or dramatic. It was quiet, subtle signs of healing that only someone who had loved him deeply would notice. The way he stretched out fully when lying down, the way he didn't always watch the door anymore, the way his tail wagged without hesitation when someone called his name. He had begun to feel safe. Emily, always the quiet observer, watched these moments with a cautious heart. She had feared that bringing Duke back might break him even more. That after all those years alone, he wouldn't be able to reattach to the life they built without him. But she was wrong. Duke didn't just return to their family. He taught them what it meant to hold on. To wait. To believe. One day, Martha, the diner owner from the old town, came to visit. She had followed Duke's story through social media and local news, and she wanted to see the miracle for herself. Lucas opened the door to her, surprised but smiling. Martha? She smiled, eyes warm. Had to see the hero in person. She stepped inside, holding a small paper bag of treats, Duke's favorites. When she saw him, lying in the sunbeam near the back window, she paused. He looks different, she whispered. Lucas nodded. He is. She knelt down slowly, letting him approach. This time, Duke didn't walk away. He came forward, curious. His nose twitched as he sniffed the bag. Then he gently nudged her hand. Tears filled her eyes. You remember me, don't you, sweetheart? She handed him a treat, and Duke took it gently, then sat beside her. Lucas watched, the lump in his throat too big to swallow. Martha turned to him. He's finally starting to settle in. Lucas nodded again. It's like he knows. He's safe now. Later that evening, after Duke's walk and a full meal, the family sat in the living room, bathed in warm light. Duke lay at their feet, his breathing soft, his eyes half closed. The television played low in the background, but no one really paid attention. Lucas leaned back against the couch. Duke shifted, placing his head in Lucas's lap, his favorite spot from long ago. Emily smiled from across the room. He used to do that every night. Lucas didn't look up. He just ran his fingers gently through Duke's fur. He still does. Benjamin sat nearby, sipping tea. It feels different, doesn't it? Like we're whole again. And they were. The house had felt quiet for years, too quiet, even after the move. But now, with Duke's soft footsteps, his playful barks, his gentle presence, it felt like home again. That night, as Lucas was heading to bed, he stopped at the living room doorway. Duke was asleep in his bed. No pacing. No watching the door. Just sleep, deep and untroubled. Lucas smiled and whispered, "Good night, buddy." Duke didn't stir. It was the first time Lucas had ever walked away without checking if Duke would follow. He didn't have to. He knew Duke was finally where he belonged. The next morning was peaceful. Sunlight poured through the windows, casting golden patterns on the floor. The backyard, still damp from a light morning drizzle, shimmered in the light. Lucas opened the back door and called softly, "You want to go out, boy?" Duke trotted over, tail wagging. "Ready?" They stepped out into the yard together. No leash. No fear. Just trust. As they walked across the grass, Lucas tossed the tennis ball. Duke chased it with surprising energy, bounding through the yard like a pup again. His steps were sure, his tail high, his body relaxed. He returned the ball, dropped it at Lucas's feet, and gave a small bark, almost like a laugh. They played for a while, boy and dog, like time had bent and erased the years apart. Then, the door creaked open behind them. "Dinner's ready!" Emily called. Duke paused mid-step. His ears twitched at her voice. Then, without hesitation, he turned and trotted toward the porch. Lucas followed, heart full. Duke sat patiently by Emily, tail wagging, eyes full of something soft and open, trust. She reached down, offered a treat, and scratched his head. "Good boy," she whispered. Duke didn't flinch. He didn't scan the street. He didn't glance toward the open gate. He just sat, content, right where he was. That evening, as the family ate together, Duke curled up beside the dining table, occasionally glancing up whenever Lucas dropped a scrap or called his name. It felt like the past had finally loosened its grip. Like the ghost of waiting had been replaced by the warmth of being home. And as the stars blinked into the night sky outside, Duke drifted off to sleep once more, not with one eye open, not by the door, not in fear, but curled in the middle of the living room, surrounded by the sounds and scents of the people he loved most. After 4 long years, the dog who never left had finally returned. And for the first time in a very long time, he was no longer waiting. He was home. The days grew shorter. Autumn winds turned colder. Trees outside the Carter home shed their golden leaves like soft whispers of time passing. But inside the house, warmth had returned, not just in temperature, but in spirit. Duke had become a part of the rhythm again. Morning routines now included the sound of his paws clicking across the kitchen floor, tail brushing furniture, as he followed Emily from stove to sink. When Lucas woke for school, Duke was always there, waiting at the bottom of the stairs, eyes bright, as if ready to guard him through another day. He didn't just live in the house, he moved with it, breathed with it, belonged in it. And yet, every now and then, small flickers of memory pulled at him. Sometimes, when a car passed by too fast, or thunder rumbled in the distance, Duke would pause. Still his body. Ears up. Eyes distant. Lucas saw it each time, a moment when Duke's mind went somewhere else. Somewhere far. But then he'd blink, look around, and return. Every time, the gap between reaction and return became smaller. Less haunted. More grounded. Healing wasn't a straight path. But Duke was walking it, one step at a time. One chilly weekend, Lucas had an idea. He wanted to do something special for Duke. Something that honored the journey they had all taken. He dug through the closet and found an old, chewed-up collar, faded red, frayed at the edges, a dangling tag still attached. It had been Duke's puppy collar. The one he wore before everything changed. Lucas brought it to the living room and knelt in front of him. "Remember this?" he asked softly. Duke sniffed it, then looked up at Lucas with a strange gentleness. A flicker of recognition? A memory? Lucas wasn't sure. But Duke didn't pull away. Lucas fastened the collar loosely around his neck. It still fits. He smiled. Duke stood tall, almost proud, like a soldier wearing his first badge. They took a walk that afternoon, just the two of them. Noah Patterson, the journalist who started it all, had kept in touch. He had offered to visit again, to film a follow-up. But Lucas had asked for some time. He wanted Duke to settle first. To live in the joy of reunion before the world asked for his story again. But now, Lucas was ready. So was Duke. That weekend, Noah arrived with a small crew, just a sound guy and a quiet cameraman who barely said a word. He wasn't here for drama. He was here for truth. Lucas greeted them at the door. Duke stood beside him, calm, tail swaying slightly. Noah smiled. He looks amazing. Lucas nodded. He's home. They sat in the backyard while the camera rolled. Lucas told the story, in his own words. About the accident. The loss. The years of wondering if Duke had survived. The moment he saw the video. The voice that cracked when he called out. Duke. Noah listened carefully, nodding but never interrupting. At one point, Emily stepped out with tea for everyone. Duke walked beside her, brushing against her legs like he used to do as a pup. Noah whispered to his cameraman, "Get that." They filmed Duke playing in the yard, curling up beside Lucas, standing tall beside Benjamin as he grilled burgers later that evening. Every frame told a story, not of rescue, but of reunion. Not of tragedy, but of triumph. Before they left, Noah turned to Lucas. You know, this story saved more than Duke. It reminded people what loyalty looks like. What love can survive. Lucas looked down at Duke, who was resting at his feet. I didn't save him, he said quietly. He saved himself. I just caught up. That night, as the moon rose high over the neighborhood, Noah posted the follow-up video. Update: the dog who never left, he's home now. After 4 years of waiting, Duke the German Shepherd was reunited with his family. He remembered. They remembered. And now, they healed together. The video went viral instantly. Millions of views. Thousands of comments. I'm crying again. Duke's story should be a movie. This restored my faith in the world. News outlets picked it up. Animal shelters shared it. Even schools began using it in lessons about loyalty and empathy. But for the Carters, it wasn't about the likes or the headlines. It was about the quiet moments. Like the one a few days later, when Lucas came home from school and opened the front door. Duke was there, waiting. Tail wagging. Eyes bright. Lucas smiled, dropped his bag, and knelt down. Hey you. Duke pressed his head into Lucas's chest. No bark. No theatrics. Just connection. He was home. And this time, he knew it. Winter arrived quietly, blanketing the neighborhood in soft snow and long shadows. The trees stood bare, the rooftops dusted with white, and the world outside felt still, like it was holding its breath. But inside the Carter home, things were different. There was warmth now. Not just from the fireplace, but from the steady heartbeat of a family reunited. Duke had become more than just a dog who returned. He was a symbol. To the Carters, to the town, to anyone who had followed his story. A symbol of endurance. Of love that refuses to fade. Of loyalty that outlasts time. Every morning, he would lie near the back door, soaking in the soft winter sun. Emily often brought her tea to sit beside him. She would read in silence, Duke occasionally nudging her hand, his body fully relaxed. He had stopped guarding the door. He no longer looked toward the street every time someone opened it. And that, more than anything, told her he was finally letting go of the fear that home might be temporary. Lucas spent more time with Duke than ever. They took long walks through the neighborhood, Duke proudly wearing a new, deep blue collar with a tag that read, Duke, the dog who never left. Neighbors stopped them often, offering treats, gentle pets, and words of admiration. Duke took it all in with calm dignity, like he understood that people weren't just greeting a dog. They were greeting a legend. One evening, after dinner, the family sat on the couch flipping through a scrapbook they had begun building together. It was filled with photos of Duke, some old, some new. Puppy pictures, birthday parties, snapshots from camping trips long before the accident. And now, photos of Duke resting in his new bed, playing in the snow, smiling alongside Lucas in the backyard. Lucas paused on one page, a printed screenshot of the first viral video. Duke, sitting by the gas station. Dusty, still, tired. He stared at it for a long time. That version of him feels like a ghost, he whispered. Emily leaned closer. Because it was. A part of him got left behind there. But he's whole again now. Benjamin closed the scrapbook gently. And so are we. There was a silence that followed, not awkward but peaceful. The kind of silence that only comes when everything feels like it's in the right place. Duke, who had been lying on the rug nearby, stood up and stretched. Then he padded over to Lucas and pressed his head into his lap. Lucas smiled and kissed the top of his head. Good boy. That night, while snow fell outside, Duke lay curled at the foot of Lucas's bed, just like he used to before the world changed. But it wasn't just the family that noticed Duke's transformation. People from all over the country continued writing to the Carters. Emails, letters, messages on social media. Strangers shared stories of their own lost pets. Of loyalty. Of heartbreak. Of hope. A woman from Michigan wrote, I never believed my dog would find her way back. But after seeing Duke's story, I checked again. She'd been in a shelter 2 counties away for almost a year. We're reunited now. Thank you. A soldier deployed overseas messaged. Duke reminded me why I keep going. Sometimes, loyalty is the only thing that keeps us standing. Even children wrote in crayon drawings of Duke, simple notes that read, He's my hero. I want to be brave like Duke. I love him and I've never met him. Emily cried the night she read those aloud. He doesn't even know, she whispered. He has no idea what he's done. Benjamin placed a hand on her shoulder. He doesn't have to. He's just being who he is. And that was enough. Then, something unexpected happened. Noah called again, this time, with a different request. There's a foundation in the works, he explained. Inspired by Duke. It's for animals who are lost, abandoned, or waiting. We want to call it the Never Left Project. Would you let us use his name? His story? The Carters didn't hesitate. Yes, Emily said firmly. If his story can help even one more animal find their way home, it's worth everything. A month later, the foundation launched. Donations poured in. Shelters across the country partnered with the project. Billboards appeared with Duke's image, that same photo of him sitting solemnly beside the gas station, beneath it written, he waited. And he was found. #NeverLeftLucas stood in front of one of those billboards with Duke beside him one morning, a dusting of snow on the sidewalk. He looked up at the massive image of his dog, and smiled. He waited for me, he whispered. So now I'll stand for him. Duke, now older, calmer, wiser, nudged Lucas's leg with his nose, as if to say, I always knew you'd come. And he had. As winter deepened, the Carter household became a haven of comfort and routine. Morning coffee, school drop-offs, lazy weekends, soft snow falling outside as the fireplace crackled within. And through it all, Duke was present, no longer just watching the door, but part of everything. He had found peace, but it wasn't just peace. It was belonging. The scarred edges of his spirit were softening, the guarded look in his eyes fading. He wasn't simply surviving anymore, he was living. Lucas had started documenting their days together on a small video journal. It wasn't for views, not anymore. It was for memory. For preservation. Because he knew this time, this new chapter, was something they would never want to forget. Day 34 since Duke came home, Lucas whispered in one video. He wagged his tail in his sleep today. I think he was dreaming. He never used to dream before. Emily walked into the room just as Lucas finished that recording, and sat beside him on the couch. You know, she said, stroking Duke's fur where he lay at their feet. I think he's teaching us how to be present. How to forgive the world. Lucas nodded slowly. He doesn't even look back anymore. Because Duke no longer needed to. Whatever he was looking for out on that road, whatever echo of loss had kept him there, had found him instead. His family. One night, as a surprise, Benjamin came home with a framed shadow box. Inside it were 3 items: Duke's original red collar, a photo of him and Lucas as a puppy, and a quote on a black backing. He never left. He only waited. They hung it above Duke's bed. The next morning, a letter arrived. It was from a retired paramedic who had been on duty the night of the Carter family's accident. His words were trembling, heartfelt. I remember that night like it was yesterday. There was chaos. Fire. Screams. I saw the dog trying to get to the boy. We tried to catch him. We failed. I blamed myself for a long time. When I saw your story, I wept. He survived. And he found his W. I back. Thank you for the closure I didn't know I needed. Emily folded the letter gently and placed it beside the shadow box. Closure. That was what Duke's story was giving to so many. Not just people who'd lost dogs, but people who had lost something in themselves. The Never Left project continued to grow. Duke became the quiet symbol behind a rising movement, a movement that told people not to give up. Not on each other. Not on second chances. Then one morning, something happened that caught everyone off guard. Duke barked. Not a warning. Not a reaction. But a real bark, loud, joyful, playful, as he chased a squirrel across the backyard. Lucas stood on the porch stunned. It was the first bark he'd heard since the reunion. Duke barked again, tail wagging as he bounded through the snow like he had years earlier. Lucas laughed, a full, hard, deep sound. You're really back now, huh? Emily came outside, Benjamin behind her. They watched as Duke ran in circles, kicking up snow, barking at the sky like the world was finally light enough to carry joy again. Duke finally trotted up to Lucas, panting, eyes shining. Lucas crouched. Where have you been hiding that energy? Duke bumped his nose into Lucas's chest and sat down. Not at the gate. Not at the door. Right in the middle of his home. That evening, Lucas uploaded a clip of Duke's first bark to the project's page. The caption was simple. He barked today. 4 years of silence. And today, he barked. The post exploded. Comments poured in again. He's free. Tears in my eyes. That sound means everything. We didn't just witness a reunion, we witnessed a resurrection. By now, even major news networks had picked up the arc of the story. What started as a local mystery had become a national narrative of loyalty and love. But for the Carters, the attention wasn't the reward. It was the quiet. It was the sound of Duke's breathing at night, finally deep and steady. It was the way he leaned in to touch instead of pulling away. The way he looked at them with a softness that said, I'm not waiting anymore. I'm here. One snowy afternoon, Lucas sat in the backyard, his breath forming little clouds in the cold air. Duke lay beside him, head on his lap, eyes closed. Lucas whispered, You waited for 4 years. I think it's our turn now. We'll wait as long as it takes. For every other dog like you. We'll help them find their way back, too. Duke stirred slightly, pressing his weight into Lucas's legs. A promise made. A mission born? The boy who once cried in a hospital bed for his missing dog was now leading a movement that gave others hope. And the dog who never gave up was finally learning what it meant to let go of pain and run freely in the now. The snow kept falling. But inside the Carter home, and within every heart touched by Duke's journey, there was warmth enough to last a lifetime. The world began to thaw as winter slowly released its grip. Snowbanks melted into puddles, grass peeked through slush-covered soil, and sunlight lingered just a little longer each evening. With the changing season came new energy. In the neighborhood, in the home, and in Duke. He had been home for months now. Not just physically, emotionally, spiritually. And with every sunrise he grew younger. More vibrant. More himself. It was in the little things. The way he now greeted Emily with a playful nudge each morning, pushing his head under her hand as she brewed her coffee. The way he rolled onto his back in the living room, paws flailing midair, asking for belly rubs without shame. The way he barked excitedly at the mailman, only to wag his tail seconds later, tail sweeping the floor like a broom of joy. He wasn't just healed. He was happy. Lucas had taken to calling him Commander Duke. Not because he was stern, but because wherever he went, he led with presence. With calm authority. He didn't demand attention, he earned it. Everyone listened when Duke walked into a room. People paused. They smiled. At school, Lucas was invited to speak at a local assembly about Duke's story. He stood nervously in front of a sea of classmates, his voice trembling at first. "I didn't think he was alive," he began. "I thought he was gone forever. But he wasn't." He waited. For years. Through storms. Through loneliness. Through everything. And somehow, he still loved us when we came back. The auditorium was silent. Lucas took a breath. He didn't hold a grudge. He didn't give up. And now, he's teaching me how to live better. To love deeper. To stay loyal even when it's hard. The principal gave him a standing ovation. But Lucas didn't need applause. As he walked off stage, he checked his phone. A photo from home. Duke asleep on the couch, paws in the air, tongue sticking out slightly. Lucas smiled. The Carters were also preparing for something special, Duke's birthday. They didn't know his exact birth date, but they decided to celebrate it on the day he returned home. That date had meaning. It marked not just his reunion with them, but the beginning of everything new. Emily baked a special dog-friendly cake, complete with peanut butter frosting and a candle shaped like a bone. Lucas handwrote a card, which he read aloud while Duke sat proudly beside him wearing a party hat. "Dear Duke," he read, holding back tears. "You're not just our dog. You're our miracle. You remind me every day that no matter how far someone drifts, love can still find them. I'm so proud of you. And I love you more than I can say." Duke barked once in response, wagging his tail as everyone clapped and laughed. Benjamin reached down and ruffled the fur behind his ears. "Happy birthday, buddy. You earned this life." And he had. That night, as candles flickered and the fireplace burned low, the family sat together in the living room, lights dimmed, voices soft. Lucas held a framed photo in his lap, the one taken the day of their reunion at the gas station. Behind Duke's tired frame was the rising sun, casting long shadows across the empty lot. "It feels like a lifetime ago," Lucas said. "It was," Emily replied. "In a way, it was another life." Benjamin leaned forward. "You know, I used to think Duke waited because he was lost. But now I think he waited because he knew we were coming. He just believed harder than we did." Lucas looked down at the dog resting against his feet. He believed in us, even when we forgot how to believe in ourselves. Outside, the wind whispered through the trees. Duke stirred and stood up slowly, walking over to the glass door that led to the backyard. Lucas followed and slid it open. Duke stepped onto the porch and looked out over the yard, bathed in moonlight. Then he did something he hadn't done in a long, long time. He howled. A long, deep, soulful sound that carried across the rooftops and into the night. It wasn't a cry of sorrow. It wasn't a call of loneliness. It was something else entirely. It was freedom. A declaration. "I'm here. I made it. I'm alive." Lucas stepped beside him and placed a hand on his back. The howl faded into silence. Duke looked up at him, eyes glowing with quiet strength. "You're not the same dog I lost," Lucas whispered. "You're stronger now." And Duke, in the way only dogs can, seemed to say, "So are you." They stood there for a while, boy and dog, beneath the stars. Not waiting. Not hoping. Just being. Together. Spring settled in with quiet grace. The trees bloomed again, their once bare branches now full of soft green leaves. Flowers pushed through the soil like tiny bursts of color returning to the world. Life, in every form, was starting over. So was Duke. His coat had regained its shine. His gait, once tentative, was confident and smooth. He no longer hesitated at open doors or glanced nervously down empty roads. Instead, he explored the backyard with ease, napping under trees, sniffing at flower beds, barking at birds with the energy of a younger dog. He had become the heart of the Carter home. Even strangers passing through the neighborhood recognized him now. They often slowed down near the front yard just for a glimpse, as if seeing Duke, the dog who waited 4 years and still believed, gave them something they didn't know they needed. One afternoon, while Lucas worked on a school project at the dining table, Duke came over, rested his head on the boy's lap, and stayed there. Lucas looked down, then chuckled softly. "You just like being close, huh?" Duke didn't move. "All right," Lucas whispered. He set his pencil down and sat with him, running his hand through Duke's fur. "You don't ever have to wait again. Not for me. Not for anyone." Duke's tail thumped once. Emily, watching from the kitchen, felt her chest tighten, not with sadness, but with pride. Gratitude. Ah. Her son, who once cried himself to sleep missing this dog, was now the boy who had brought him home. Who had stood by him as he healed. Who had grown with him. Benjamin joined her at the window, coffee mug in hand. They stood together in silence, watching their son and their dog. There was nothing more to say. The moment spoke for itself. That night, as they all sat together in the living room, a familiar scene by now, Lucas picked up the worn photo album. He flipped past the old memories and stopped at the newest photo taped in. Duke running full speed across the backyard. Ears flying, tongue out, eyes alive. Below it, Lucas had written in bold black ink, "He didn't just come back. He came all the way home." He closed the album and leaned back against the couch. Duke lay beside him, pressed close, breathing slow and calm. And in that quiet, gentle night, something finally settled deep inside all of them. The past no longer hurt. It was still there, always would be, but it no longer ached like it used to. It was a part of their story, not the shadow over it. Duke had taught them that. That love, when it's real, outlasts storms, silence, time, even loss. As the evening wore on, the family got ready for bed. Lucas stood at his door, waiting for Duke like he always did. "Coming?" he asked. Duke padded down the hallway and followed him into the room. No hesitation. No glance back. Lucas climbed into bed, and Duke curled up at the foot, his body finding the same spot it had claimed years ago. Lucas smiled in the dark. "Good night, Duke." A soft exhale was all he heard in return. The stars outside blinked above the neighborhood. Another day ended, another chapter written, not of waiting, but of living. And somewhere, someone else might have been driving down a quiet road, seeing a dog sitting near an old station, wondering if he belonged to someone. And maybe, because of Duke's story, they'd stop. Maybe they'd post a photo. Maybe they'd help another dog find their way back. Because of one German shepherd who refused to leave. Because of a dog who waited for 4 years in the same place, believing his family would return. Because that belief, that loyalty, made the world believe again. Duke's journey was never just about reunion. It was about what happens after. About healing. About faith. About choosing to stay, even when it hurts. And most of all, it was about love that doesn't ask questions. Love that just waits. Love that never leaves. So if you ever see a dog sitting by the road, staring into the distance, don't assume they're lost. Maybe they're waiting for someone they still believe in. Maybe, just maybe, they're waiting for someone who still believes in them. And if Duke's story touched your heart, don't let it end here. Adopt. Don't shop. Love fiercely. Wait patiently. And always believe, in loyalty, in reunion, in second chances. Because sometimes, the miracle isn't just the return. It's what comes after. And sometimes, just sometimes, the dog who never left becomes the reason we all come back to ourselves. Duke came home. And he taught the world how to hope again. Thank you for listening. And if you ever see a pair of patient eyes by the roadside, don't look away. Hearts like Duke's are never truly lost. They're just waiting to be found.